I, I always have to say that I have a special reason because back nearly 50 years ago, I received a Paul Harris Fellowship that paid fully for a year's study in Mexico. Amazing. And so I like to praise that program from Rotary every chance I can. That was truly a life-changing event since I ended up as a Spanish teacher. And I didn't grow up in Marble Falls. As Gil mentioned, my dad family and he did. But I came here in '77 and taught mostly Spanish in the high school and did that for a long time, and then ended up at Austin Community College teaching paramedics, long story, and retired in 2015. And as happens with retirement, sometimes you get involved in other things. And in my case, the other thing among many was volunteering. Started out volunteering at the Falls in the Colorado Museum, and as happens, they kind of sucked me in, and a year or so ago, they said, why don't you be the chairperson of this? So that's how that happened. So again, thanks to the judge for mentioning my family. As I said, my dad grew up in Marble Falls on property where I live now, and that side of the family arrived in this area in the 1850s. And so I grew up kind of knowing about the history. He loved history. And one of my ancestors, his ancestors, is one of the people that was put into Dead Man's Hole. And so I grew up knowing that story. Anyway, it was kind of a natural segue into getting involved in the history. And Rebecca, you mentioned that you didn't know much about the Falls Museum, and that is very, very common. A lot of people that, you talk about the museum, oh, I didn't know Marble Falls had a museum. So maybe I'll tell you a little bit about it and inspire some people to come by and share the information. And when you have guests, sometimes it's a good thing to come visit. So I'm doing the share screen, and let's see there. I want to mention that the museum has a long history working with Rotarians, primarily the Noon Rotary Club, since that's some of those folks know some of the museum folks better. This is a bench in front of the museum that was donated, and so we have that permanent link there. And let me move this so I can see. So we are located on Broadway, and it is this is a building, it's owned by the school district, and behind this building is the Marble Falls Elementary School. I don't know, well, and Gil, did you go to school here at all?
I never did. My dad grew up here.
Okay. And Jeanette was your grandmother, is that right?
That's correct.
And so the judge's grandmother was Jeanette Jones, and you could probably tell us some stories about her. I have heard some amazing stories. She was one of those English teachers, I think primarily, and maybe allocation, or I don't know, but people that had her as a teacher remembered her. And there's some good stories. But this building was the first school building for the area. And it was built in 1891, and it's built with the Granite Mountain granite. And only a few years after the town of Marble Falls was founded in 1881. No, I'm sorry, 1887. And it started out as an academy. They were hoping to attract, more people if we had a school of higher education. That didn't work after a few years, and it became property of the independent school district. in about 1907 and was actively used by the school district until around 1990s, thereabout. And one of the fun things when I'm at the museum is that we will get folks that come in and either they or parents or grandparents went to school and they come in and they say, oh, I remember this room and this is where so-and-so taught. And there's a fire escape in the back. And there are a lot of stories about the fire escape because either the kids liked it because it was great fun to slide down, or it was rather terrifying when they did fire drills to do that. So the museum was established in 2001. This is our fourth location and hopefully final because it's a perfect location. And some of you may have known Madeline Frazier. She worked at the Bluebonnet, among other things, for many, many years. She knew everybody. She collected every bit of history, just an amazing person. And she was one of the founders of this, and her collection of information is one of the main things about, or kind of the base of what we have. We are run we're not part of the city or the county, it's volunteers, and actually our docents are happier than these folks appear here, but we have some amazing volunteers, incredible background. Some have been around the area for a very, very long time. On the right is Danielle Meredith, and she is one of our main historians because she grew up here and knows people. Carol Carlson is the one who renovated the house on 6th Street, I think, that frequently does an open house for Christmas. And Dr. Jane Knopick is very involved in history, and I'll talk about her as having written a book and involved in research, and many, many more people. But so we go ahead. Was there a question?
No.
No, okay. Our money comes from donations, memberships, and we go after grants, and I'll talk about some of them, and that's really where our funding comes from. Okay. One of the main questions we get is when visitors come in, and we get people from all over. And since we've reopened after the pandemic kind of let us reopen, we have a lot of out-of-town people. I would say really 3/4 maybe of the people that come in, and many of those are from out of state, and occasionally we get some from out of the country. But they tend to ask is, where are the falls? And so the museum does a lot to explain. We have photographs of where the falls are. And then the other one is, why are they marble falls? Because we don't have marble. And what I found out, and I need to verify this, but apparently there's a type of limestone that if it's hard enough, people that work in stone will call it marble. So I used to think that people just didn't know what they were doing when they called it marble falls, but it probably refers to this limestone. So we have a lot of information, photographs about the falls. A lot of people don't know the history of Marmon Mill Road. But back in the 1850s, we had a group of Mormons, and they built a mill down the road. And as happens in Texas, eventually that mill was washed away in a flood. There's some interesting history and a link to the town of Smithwick. And this is sort of it's a reconstruction of how the grist mill would have worked with at the bottom, the millstone, and this would have been powered by water. And if you will notice, this is built without any nails. It's just wooden pegs holding it together, and it is a really neat exhibit that we have. We have an area of, we call it the town life room, and a bedroom with a chamber pot. We have a kitchen without electricity that has wood burning stoves. And we have a lot of exhibits with some of the old stores like Michelle's drugstore and the factory that was on the river. And then we spend time, people are curious about the river. And back in the day when you had to take a ferry across the river when they were trying to, probably this was after they rebuilt the bridge that was washed away in the flood of 1935. And this is a dam at the bottom, Alexander Dam. I had never heard of it. And it was another attempt to dam the river that didn't quite work. We have an archaeology exhibit, and this is a bison skeleton that's 700 years old. We have arrow points. We have an exhibit on geology, and folks that know about the rocks in the area might appreciate some of this, but it's a chronological of how old some of these different layers of stone are. Ranch life, have a lot of things there. We try to have changing exhibits, and currently this month we are honoring the veterans and local veterans, and hopefully we'll do this again and get some more, but we solicited photographs of people from the area that served. Mostly, I don't think we had any World War I, but World War II, Vietnam, all the our Desert Storm, Iraq, Afghanistan. This gentleman, some of you may have known, it was our J.F. Frazier, and this is his uniform, and he was a POW in the Pacific. I think he was on the Bataan Death March, and he has donated his uniform and story to us. So that's the current exhibit, and we will bring in things even outside exhibits. So we try to have a change of things to see when you come in that are interesting. This is a Quilt of Valor that we work with that group that provides specially made quilts to veterans. So if any of you are veterans and would like to fill out a form, there's a group of ladies and they make quilts. They're trying to get the World War II generation taken care of first, since many of those folks are disappearing. But anyway, this is a quilt that has yet to be presented, and it's something that in the past we've been able to have programs to honor those. So some of the things that are going on when COVID hit, we, along with so many other people, shut down and were closed for just over a year. Since we've opened up, there have been a lot of projects that have happened and some changes made that we think are good. When the school district passed its last bond, one of the things was to renovate the elementary school, and that involved these buildings. This used to be a gym, and this parking lot is new. But back in, I think, around the 1940s or so, the superintendent of schools, Don Cood, had a rubble wall built, and it went from the front of the museum all the way to the end of the block. And this is what it looked like. So the school district wanted to make the parking lot and needed to tear down the wall. And we said, oh, please don't get rid of the stones. And so they piled them up, and we had a grant from LCRA and PEC, and the school district helped on this, to build, using the original rock, a stone wall along the outside lawn. And they did a beautiful job. And people that went to school there remember, and the original wall in front is still there. And then there were stone left over, and we, bit of a long story, but I'll make it short. Eileen Hurd, Horseshoe Bay, had rescued, this is a griststone that was located at the Conrad Fuchs house in Horseshoe Bay, and there had been a mill there. And in order to protect that, she had taken years ago this stone, and then she wanted to get it to a place that would appreciate it, and we were certainly that place. So she donated the money to get the stone, and there's another stone piece that was related, and to help fund using the rest of the rock to build this wall. So now, and this is what the original wall looked like in front. And this allowed us now, so the museum has a lawn around it. And there's a plaque. I know it's hard to read there, but something else that we have done is have published, or republished rather, a couple of books. And one is the Pictorial History of Marble Falls. And that was published originally by the Highlander a little over 20 years ago and had gone out of print. And so currently the museum is the only place you can find it. And it has, again, pictures of pictorial history. And we have arranged to have it sold online. So that'll, people that Google books in Marble Falls can find that. Another book, and I don't have a picture of it, was partly written by Madeline Frazier, and it's the valley between the Pedernales and the Colorado, and it's the history of the area around Spicewood. And so really, other than, again, we're making them available online, museum's the only place that has those. So that's kind of a unique thing. And if you've never seen it, that's what the town looked like before the dams were built. And this bridge, I don't know exactly when it was built, but it was washed away in it was the biggest flood so far. 2018 was kind of the second biggest, but one of the big floods that we had. The other thing, we have been involved in, well, we have a grant to work with AARP and seniors, and they have paid to have a lady come, Marilyn McCain, and she is in the process of what's called accessioning our items. And so for a long time, people would donate things, would have things, and they weren't properly documented where they came from, who they were, things like that. And she's been working now for a long time, and we come across stuff that we have no idea who, what, when, where it came from. And this is a sweet example of, there's this little photograph with a young boy, no idea who it was. Nobody knew. And then as she was looking at the photograph, she took the back off, and we found this picture of this young lady, and a rather striking photograph again. No idea who, when, anything about it. And then in the files, we found this. And you can see that appears to be the woman that was in the earlier photograph, and it says Maria Lewis Johnson Root with her first child, Elizabeth Lewis Root, in Burnage, and the dog's name is Mickey. And then they have the obituary for the baby, and she was born in December of 1923, and her name was called Betty Lou Root Jones. The father has apparently, he had a long history and traced back to colonial times. The Maria Lewis Johnson Root and then Betty Lou, it turned out, are descendants of the founder of Marble Falls, General Adam Rankin Johnson. And I need to check with the Johnsons and see if they have these photographs, or know anything about it. But that's one of the things people don't think about on museums, and our museum, is that if you're interested in genealogy of people in the area, if you're doing some family research, things like that, we have a lot of files through another grant that was finished about a year or so ago. We had a gentleman who digitalized all our photographs, and there's still work to be done to organize them and again, try to use them in a way. But the museum has a big collection of photographs. We have articles, a lot of stories. So if you're interested in doing some research on history of Marble Falls, we probably will have something that you need. So that's the quick rundown. I'm about at the time, from maybe gone over a little bit. Let me stop sharing if anyone has any quick questions.
That's almost spooky to come up with that unknown photo and find out it's a photo of a relative of General Johnson.
Stuff like that happens.
So what is the address of the museum? Where is it?
It is on Broadway, 2001 Broadway. Okay. And it's the West End, and we're kind of the backside, or backside of Marble Falls Elementary School.
Okay.
And cool. Avenue T kind of runs into it. We are open now Mondays through Saturdays from 10 o'clock until 2 o'clock.
How about this week?
Yeah.
This week we are open. In fact, I'm going to be there later today, and we are closed Thanksgiving Day, but we'll be open Friday and Saturday.
Great.
Awesome.
And we have a lot of good stuff to look at.
No doubt.
I really have enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Good.
Robyn, don't let me forget, I owe you a piece for the museum. I have a prospectus where my grandfather was trying to get Johnson & Johnson here to manufacture gauze in the old factory building.
Right, the Mathis, and they did air conditioning at some point, but at one point, wasn't it a cotton, they did mattresses?
Originally, it was a cotton compress.
Okay. Which is another thing, that cotton was a big industry back then. I mean, they had cotton mills in Marble Falls. Who knew?
Crazy.
Robyn, thanks a bunch for spending your morning with us.
Yeah, it's very enjoyable. I tell you, I'm ready for my company to come so I can take them around and show them some more cool stuff.
Please do.
Wonderful.